Hi guys, okay, so a bit of an update on how I am and how the girls are, and yeah, just where we are in terms of grief and loss and life and all that stuff. So over the last, I'd say 2 weeks, definitely Brooke has dealt with some boundary anger type stuff at home, which has been difficult for me, and we had one big full blowout where she said she hated me, she wishes I wasn't here, I'm a mean mom, you know, kick-offs, like really big kick-offs on the floor, like tantrum, screaming, really awful. I think because I'd prepared for those words, I detached from them slightly, although it was more distressing to see Brooke in that kind of state. But actually, once, I mean, I lay down with her and I just told her I loved her, and that no matter what she said, it didn't matter, and that I would always love her and that I was there for her. Once she calmed, she was then really upset, obviously, because she'd said those words, and she started to say she hated herself, and I knew that would come, and that's what's hard, because I knew that she was just expressing her rage at her dad dying, and that nothing's the same, and the situation is that, you know, we're not settled as such yet, and that there's still work to be done, and you know, the kids are just feeling a little bit unsettled, basically, and that they want some stability, they want some of their normal back, and at the minute they're getting not enough of what they're used to overall. And I think that's, well, I know that's really hard. It's hard on me, so of course it's going to be hard on children that don't have that foresight into the future and know that this moment is actually short-lived. And so yeah, but once we calmed, you know, we sat and we talked about all the good things, we changed our focus, and we just said, I said, right, let's just talk about anything that makes us feel good. So we then go, okay, what's your favourite food? What's your favourite colour? Brooke asked me, if you had 10 kids, Mum, I know you're not going to, I know I'm not going to, what would you call them? And then we named names. We just distracted, we had a cuddle. We talked about that Brooke felt she needed more time one-on-one with me, so that's something that I've been addressing over the last week, and I have seen a change. So often, and I know this, often when we are as parents trying to pour from an empty cup, and especially when you're going through grief, you know I'm not as fun as I would normally be. Understandably, I'm not giving myself grief for that, and I say to the girls, look, I'm aware I'm not that fun, I'm not doing the things I would normally do, I'm not being quite as silly as I would normally be with the girls, because I'm just fighting fires a little bit still, and dealing with my own emotions, and obviously all of that stuff, you know, will change in time, but I'm aware of it. So I say that to the girls, you know, I'm honest about that, and I noticed that really a lot of the kids' behaviour comes from us as parents. Obviously there is other factors when it's grief and loss, but when we aren't our full selves, you know, that comes off onto the children. And so I've made a conscious effort to make sure they are getting my time and my focus on them, and that has helped. I definitely, you know, bedtimes are still not always amazing. Overall though, they're good. They're still dealing with things well, they're still laughing and joking. Their pictures that they draw are colourful and nice, and we talk about Ross all of the time. In fact, this week it's been kind of on car journeys, we've been talking a lot about, I don't know why I started this, but kind of naughty things me and Ross did together, like silly things that we did. Often me and Ross used to do promotional work together, and because we don't take any crap from anybody, we often walked off jobs or told someone where to go, and for some unknown reason I've started sharing that with the girls. Obviously muted, watered down versions, but kind of just to show them how brave and outspoken and how amazing their dad was. I want them to know that. I want them to know the impact that he made on the world. And so I was kind of talking about, you know, how me and Ross would have each other's back always, and how on one particular job, Ross had an argument with some woman, and then I ended up in an argument with her, and Ross was behind me going, go on, do it more, and the girls loved it. And then I was talking about Brooke started to get to that age now where she's become a little bit more aware and bothered by people's opinions. And so on the way into school, she was doing something that, you know, was showing that she was a little bit bothered about other people's opinions, something to do with what she was wearing or something. And I was like, what are you bothered about what other people think for? Really? Like, you know, if it was something, I'd put her in, different story, but it was something she wanted to wear and she was being like, oh, I'm getting embarrassed. And I was like, behave yourself. Like, I said, God, I am going to get so much more embarrassing. You are going to be mortified at me in a few years. And then I said, but you are lucky in some ways because Dad had worse plans for you. Like, he had much more embarrassing things that he was going to do. And they were like, what? And I was like, well, he was going to pick you up from school in his underpants on a go-kart, which is a conversation we'd had. And they were like, what? And then Brooke said, well, Mum, you'll have to do it now because it's what Dad would have wanted. So there's that, which I wasn't expecting that I had to do, but I've told her I'll do it in secondary school, which she said would be more embarrassing. I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to promise that. I might get arrested if I did that. I'm not sure that's ideal, going into a secondary school semi-naked on a go-kart. I think that could be troubling, so I'll probably leave it out, but I would definitely be an embarrassing parent. So yeah, so we've been, you know, we're still okay, we're still doing well. I'm okay, although I think the last 2 weeks I've had more wobbles, I think, because I think just the reality of everything is really starting to settle. And, you know, just sometimes there's that feeling of loneliness, and even though there's everybody around, it doesn't fill that void. And that's just hard sometimes, you know, like, just sometimes I'll just think, he's really not here. Like, that's hard. And I know that I think his family are feeling it as well. It's because they messaged me and feels the same. And it's just some of those moments, you know, things come up, things on Facebook come up on the memories, which I really like, but also sometimes I'm like, oh God, like, it takes me back to a place when we didn't know. And yeah, it still obviously won't have properly sunk in. And I think sometimes I'm just like, you know, going throughout my day and I'm like, God, I really, really miss him. I miss him so bad. And going up to Newcastle this weekend, just knowing, because Ross was autistic, I know what he was going to say at every stage because a lot of the conversations were repeated. And so it kind of just makes me go, I'm never going to hear him say that again. I'm never going to cross the Tyne Bridge, which is a bridge in Newcastle, and hear Ross go, "Oi, oi, we're in Newcastle, oi," like he did every time. And probably annoyed me at the time, but now it's not there. Crapping it. But, I'm still alright. I still feel good most of the time, and I think that's alright, you know? Like I've said all along, I'm not putting pressure on myself to feel okay all the time, and even though you see me largely looking alright, it's not all the time, you know. Sometimes I'll have a cry. I don't cry for any length of time though, because it didn't do anything. And I don't feel good about crying I couldn't cry for like an hour or anything. It just wouldn't happen. I might feel sad for an hour, but usually I'm pretty good at just pulling myself out of that lull, because nothing's going to change. Ross is not going to come back, and so there's not much point in feeling like that all of the time. And that is it. That's where I'm at. thank you for all of your love always and your kindness across social media. I'll speak to you all soon.